I actually had to convince Yahoo Communications to allow us to show this because this is something that isn't out yet. It's coming out later this year. It was announced and it was shown during that announcement, but it hasn't really been available for people to check out. And it's right here behind the sign. And we're going to get to it. And it's the work of a team of folks led by our next conversant, Blake Irving, who is the EVP and Chief Product Officer of Yahoo. So let me bring him out and we'll have a chat. Blake? Welcome. So Blake ran into an old pal back there because he was happily on the beach that Mitch Matthews is now going to, having left, what, a 10 or 15-year career at Microsoft?
Yeah, 15 years.
15-year career at Microsoft. And then they pulled you back in, but not Microsoft, Yahoo.
Yeah, Yahoo.
And that was a year ago.
That was about a year and a couple weeks ago now.
A year and a couple weeks ago that you took a job at Yahoo. Why?
You know, it's easy to understand. I mean, an amazing brand, 680 million users worldwide, great technology, great people, and just getting better. And if you think about the opportunity that lies in front of that company, right? In front of Yahoo, there is an amazing opportunity to be in front of 1 billion users, to be creating huge value for advertisers, for marketers. And the value that it creates for consumers today is massive and not well known or understood, you know, on a worldwide basis. You know, having competed with them for a long time, you know, I knew that going in, and I've known Jerry for a really long time. So my initial conversations when they would say, hey, maybe you'd be interested in doing this, it was a pretty easy decision once I started climbing into the covers.
Now you're in bed. Well, I'm not going to push this metaphor much further.
That'd be a Twitter lead.
Not in New York. But from where I live, Yahoo is seen as a problem. It's huge. It's got this amazing user base. It's much beloved for its role in popularizing the web. But there's a sense that Yahoo has somehow lost its ability to innovate, and it's sort of coasting on its size. What's your response to that?
So I think some of those criticisms are valid to some extent. So I think that there was a period of time where Yahoo wasn't moving as quickly as it could. And if you think about the way Yahoo grew initially, it grew organically, right? It was lots of acquisitions with lots of different infrastructure. So you had products, if you use news in Asia as an example, from the metal all the way up to the application layer, that was one singular product, right? So if you were going to try to actually go innovate on top of that, you'd have to go, you know, deep into the core of the code all the way up to the top just to make changes. And none of that benefit accrued across any of the other properties that Yahoo had. So what Yahoo's been doing for about 2.5, 3 years, which causes some slowness, is re-architecting from the very bottom up all of the systems that content and media infrastructure sits on top of, right? And those investments are not lightweight, quick, snappy investments. I mean, unfortunately, when you have that many users, and it was 600 million when I started a year ago, now we're at 680. When you have that many users, you have to scale all the time. Right, so you are literally, you know, flying a plane at 35,000 feet, taking on passengers, painting it, all at the same time, changing engines when you're trying to rip and replace different properties on top of it. Now, we have, you know, a pretty common architecture now for media generally. We have Hadoop at the core. We have something called Content Optimization Relevance Engine Core that sits on top of Hadoop, and then a Yahoo publishing platform on top of that our editors use. We have rolled out this year 46 sites on top of that platform. We'll do 135 by the end of the year. 85 of them will be replacements, and 50 will be brand new sites that we don't even have today. And you know, when Ross Levinson, who is very like-minded and runs our Americas organization and is just a great guy to partner with, when he came on board and we were having conversations very early on, he said, well, okay, so let's go 3 years out. What do you think your job is and what's my job? I said, well, my job is to be able to provide you a platform that allows you to reach the audience that you care about in a geography that you want to reach them in, with the messages that you want, with your own editorial voice serving the advertisers that you want to serve in a premium display marketplace. So, and you should be able to have an editor say, I want to go target this area, put up the site, and an engineer didn't have to lift a finger. So he can be quick and snappy at scale on top of the platform we're building. And that's what we're doing.
So what I just heard, I want to play back to you and you tell me if what I understand is true, okay. Which is to say that at the end of the day, Yahoo is a premium media company.
Yahoo's the premier digital media company.
Premier digital media company.
At scale.
At scale. God, I've heard that somewhere before. The FM folks are laughing. You know, the reason I like what you said is it's clear. Yeah. Now, and you know that I've had your CEO, Carol Bartz, at some of my conferences in the past where it hasn't been that clear. Yeah. When I've asked that question. And some folks have asked for her head over the last year. So I'm going to put you in an unfair position and ask you, is she going to be around much longer?
I hope so. I mean, Carol is very good. She's a good CEO. She knows what needs to be done. She knows how many things needed to get fixed. She's assembled a great team that enjoy working with each other. And she has a lot of momentum. Now, I understand that there's frustration. Gee, why isn't this going faster? You know, again, when you're trying to solve things that are big, gnarly, hairy problems that have taken 15 years to build in some cases, right? The company's been around 16 years now, right? So she's re-architecting and putting in mechanics on how to run a company that is essentially new in some instances, right? So it's a big job. Yeah. And you know, I'm having a blast working for her. Yeah. She's you know, for all the things that she is, and I know I love them, and I know she gets assailed for, you know, salty language or this or that. Look, she's direct. She gets to the point. There's no hidden agenda. There's no kind of message that's not understood. You know, it's really clear what we need to do. And we've been able to assemble that. Hey, we're the premier digital media company. Ross says it, I say it, Rich says it, Rose says it, our entire management team says it. Right. And we get it, and we know what we got to be doing because of it. Right. Which makes decisions quicker. Quick.
So, as I said in the beginning, and this is my way of transitioning to the to what's behind there. Yeah. Yahoo has gotten some knocks in the last few years for not having interesting innovations rolled into the marketplace. And your response, which I actually buy into, is it's hard to innovate when you have, you know, siloed products that don't talk to each other, and you've been working on fixing that. So you announced this product, Livestand, a couple months ago, if I recall correctly, right? And I think, not unlike color, people sort of looked at it and said, oh, that's X, right? Where in the case of Livestand, if I can summarize the perhaps misconception of the product, that's kind of Yahoo's version of Flipboard, right? Yep. But it's not. It's not quite that, right? So it's more than that.
Yeah, so the way that I view it, look, okay, what I'm gonna, let me just.
You can pick it up. It's just an iPad.
Yeah, I know. I just want to nuke a couple of these other apps that are running right now. I've got like 30 things running. I literally have 30 things running. All right. Okay. Let's grab this guy.
So now we're going to go to the live demo.
Let's go ahead and do this live demo. So, like, when you look at it, gee, it sure looks like Flipboard. Somebody might say, okay, it's not Flipboard. This is a view into an ecosystem that I described earlier, a Hadoop cloud that manages 400 million events every 10 minutes, a content optimization engine that works for PC, tablet, phones, etc. Right? So this is just a view into that back-end infrastructure that works today for a lot of the things we do, right? Yahoo's homepage, just use that as an example, running on top of Hadoop, running on top of this core infrastructure I described earlier. That thing actually does, this is an unusual number, 45,000 different versions of the homepage every 5 minutes based on what we think you wanted to see. And at that level of personalization is the same kind of thing that we're doing here. That's for a non-logged in user. You start logging in, and Livestand's a logged in experience. It's completely different. All right? It's about personalization, about the things that you're interested in. Combines some of the social graph with something I think is even more relevant and more important, which is the interest graph. You know, the interest graph, the stuff that you care about, which matters a whole hell of a lot. Actually, it matters around the people that you talk to about those things too, because people sort of surround themselves around interesting content. So what you're seeing here, this is Nike, and if you think about marketers as publishers, just about every marketer that I've shown Livestand to has said, you know, I'm a publisher as well. Now, one thing that's clear to note here, Yahoo is will be the first customer using the Livestand platform, but it's for other publishers as well. The publisher ecosystem we're building allows other publishers to take advantage of this as well. So if I use as an example, let's just type on Surfer. So Surfer Magazine is a company that's owned by Source Interlink. Source Interlink has, I don't know, 200 publications, including Motor Trend, Powder, Skateboarder, a couple of others. It's an enthusiast magazine, right? There are very specific advertisers that do display advertising in Surfer Magazine that are not doing display on the web today, right? Huge number of print marketers that do not transfer over to the web, you know, and this is a great little experience for getting deep into content.
Now, how is this? How is this Livestand? Like, this looks like a nifty iPad app.
Well, so
what's the Livestand part of it?
So the Livestand part of it is all of the content lives in our back end. So if you think of Surfer Magazine, publishing content, pushing that content into our grid, having the algorithms and the math and the science that we use to personalize and match other stories with it. So for instance, if I'm a surfer and you know that I happen to live in the central coast of California, the information that you're going to serve up for me might be different than somebody who's on the Outer Banks of South Carolina, because you know that's where I'm from. You know the places that I shop are going to be Central Coast Surf Shop or San Luis Surf Company or whatever they are, which is different than the Outer Banks or different than Florida, right? That kind of matching, and if you think of what we're doing with Core and Yahoo Publishing Platform as almost as a content exchange, sort of the same way you think of RMX as a advertising exchange, it's like that. You're putting vast amounts of content into a content pool that can do really interesting things algorithmically with it. So in this case, I'll give you a couple examples here. There's Surfboard Buyer's Guide. Just kind of click on this thing. The way that I might, you know, use this in an environment that was more about, I'm not a huge longboard guy, but so Channel Islands board, that's Kelly Slater's brand.
Of course.
Of course it is. Just getting a little bit of information on this fish here. And I'll just go back to that article that I was on earlier by Local Surf Global. Another thing to point out, this is HTML5, right? So one of the things that publishers, sorry about that, us being a publisher is important to us. We want to publish once and have it go as many places as we can. So we're trying to do a shell with HTML5 inside it so we don't have to write just to iOS or just to Droid. And that HTML5 implementation allows us to take it to other devices like phones, Droid phones, PCs, TVs, and it's more of a four-screen content backend. So again, think of that grid, think of Core, think of the Yahoo Publishing Platform as what drives Livestand, right? Livestand, as you see it here, is something that's interesting on this device. You'll see Livestand in other places as well. Use an example of an HP ad and how different advertising is on a device like this, where you can actually do things that are way different in terms of ads. Like if that happened on my PC, I would have been pissed because it would have been an interstitial and it would have taken over my screen. On this thing, it's kind of fun and engaging, and I'm getting a kick out of it. No, it's just different. And if I let's just go into Livestand for a minute. So this is what I've chosen to have in my library. Forbes 400.
Is your old boss?
Mitch's old boss. Same kind of metaphor we had earlier. And again, if you think about the tablet, I know that people tend to take the tablet and the phone and say, oh, that's mobile, right? Well, so is your laptop, right? This is different, right? The way that, if you think about bringing marketers into the equation, one of the big issues that exists today is how many brand dollars are actually moving over to the web. And you can make an argument that says brand dollars aren't moving over to the web today because there's really no device that is really suitable or an experience that's suitable for brand advertisers. That is not the case on this device. I mean, there's been 2 devices that have been made for content consumption primarily. The TV, it's doing pretty well. It's where the brand dollars are. And the tablet. Phone is an input device. That's what it's for primarily. And the PC is a lean forward on your elbows. You got a keyboard reminding you you're supposed to be doing something. And in this case, you know, you're kicking back, you're looking at it like it's a magazine, very similar to what you'd be doing if you were on a, you know, a TV set. So we believe that brand dollars will flow into this device much more quickly than PCs. And this will actually be quite a catalyst.
So you've got, can you go back to the menu? Because for whatever reason, I'm a table of contents kind of dude.
Yeah.
Where does Yahoo win here? I mean, what I'm trying to understand is, this seems to be a platform for lots of publishers, right?
Right.
And your goal, if I understand it, is that you want lots of publishers to use this platform, right? And to create, like in your example of Surfer, to create experiences that leverage the Livestand platform and the underlying infrastructure that Yahoo has built.
That's right.
So where do you get paid? And how do the marketers out here
think about it.
Get to buy into this as an ad product that lives above the level of any of these specific ones?
Think about there's 2 pieces to the equation, right? There's supply and demand, right? On the supply side, publishers equal supply for us. So the more publishers we bring into the system, the more targeting, sharp targeting we can do for marketers. We produce supply that's out of a common back end, right? So you've got a number of different publishers all using the same back end, bring their advertisers as well, put those advertisers in the demand side of the equation, which is in our advertising platforms, and we get paid TAC on the advertising platform the same way that, you know, that
Traffic acquisition
AdWords
cost.
or any other acquisitions done today. TAC is acquisition costs.
So
That's
but
correct.
you're fighting a bit of an uphill battle in that publishers, speaking as one, tend to be well, we like to control our environment. So the idea that if I'm Surfer, I'm going to allow my content onto an exchange that might show up in an environment I don't control is scary to me.
Yeah, but you set the rules. So very clearly, every publisher says, look, I'm interested in this exchange. However, I would like to be able to do some exclusions, right? Competitive exclusions are not unusual in the advertising business today. Right?
So this is what I find interesting about what you're saying, is that you think publishers are going to start with their content acting more like marketers are now.
Yeah. So
you take my maxim of all brands are publishers and flip it.
Yep.
I like it.
I mean,
That makes sense.
It's common sense. You know, it's interesting. The CEO of Source Interlink, when I had a conversation with him about what we were doing, and he was quite anxious, knowing that he's not going to make those technological investments he needs to make to get on top of a platform like this. He basically said, you know, this sort of changes the model for me. Like, so I can actually I don't have to think about a monthly subscription. I can change content every day. I can bring readers back over and over again. And Chris Anderson at Wired did an interesting study where he found that on print media, he was getting about 60 minutes of readership a month. On the PC, he was getting about 5 minutes of readership a month. On the tablet, he was getting about 100 minutes of readership a month. Not just because it's a more engaging device, because the way you publish is different. You can bring back people every day with fresh content.
Right.
You know, which is frankly different. Here's a ad about a Miata, and I'll just say another thing that's different about it from a branding perspective. Okay, there's a rich brand ad. If that happened on my PC and you did a takeover, I'd be pissed. It'd be an interstitial. I'm like, what happened to the rest of my PC? I had other apps running. This is a different environment on the Droid and on the
Right.
iPad.
When will this be out and all of us can start to play with it and or buy on it?
Quality first. So quality first, and I'll just
Date.
Date. Well, so you're gonna see it early fall.
Early fall.
All right. So, but let me make a couple statements. Performance we've seen a number of these applications kind of get out the door and have some performance issues, and this is HTML5. We're trying to make sure that it's performant as possible. So we're making sure that when this thing goes out, you'll have it earlier than that, you personally.
Oh, I'll write it up. Everyone watch my site. We only have a little bit of time. Please, questions for the Chief Product Officer of Yahoo. Raise your hand. It's hard to see you out there. There's one over here.
Thanks. Hi, John Steinberg from BuzzFeed. Question for you. If I bring my own advertisers to Livestand, how do the economics work with Yahoo? And then how do the economics work if you backfill with rich media ads?
So the economics would work if you're bringing your own advertiser. You'd still pay a TAC just to get it into the system. So you would, in fact, we'll just talk about, we'll go back to Source again, and we'll talk about Surfer Magazine. We're not going to employ an advertising group to go after that particular target, right? Surfer has relationships with Volcom, Quicksilver, pick your advertiser, whether it's Channel Islands, et cetera. They have those relationships. They'll be bringing those advertisers onto our platform and then paying a nominal fee on the platform as well. And backfilling for us is paying TAC back.
Okay, so there'll be no network advertising that you supply in cases where the publisher doesn't bring the brand advertiser?
No, there can be, but in that case, we're ending up paying TAC back because they've got inventory and we're filling the inventory, so it's just an inverted model.
I think we had one last here.
Hi, Susan Musla, Touch Me Infopods. I have a question for you in screen size and conversion rates.
Okay.
When you see a BlackBerry screen size, and then you see a new Infuse screen size, or you see something on a tablet, or you see something on the web, has there been any studies on conversion rates?
There's been studies about engagement rates. And by conversion rates, I'm not sure what
Sales.
Sales of advertising?
Product.
Sales of product. Well, conversion rates in terms of an application that I'm going to load on my device versus this device, if they're purpose-built for the device, we don't see a big difference. Right? So we see as much Sportacular on a phone as we see on a tablet. Or, so there's not a lot of conversion difference. There's an engagement difference. Right? There's a big engagement difference between, and there's actually correlation between the device, the screen size when you start talking about phones versus a tablet when it's around media. Media, there are some great things you can do on a phone, games being some of them, communications being some of them, but as soon as you start consuming media on a smaller device, it's not nearly as natural. So the engagement factor on a tablet versus phone for media is quite different.
So bigger is better for engagement.
For media. But, it makes sense. I mean, certainly that stops scaling at some point when, your screen size is going to be, this big, unless it's sitting on a wall and you're doing, if you think forward and you think about having your TV set on the wall and you take Xbox Connect kind of technology, you'll be sitting on the couch and you'll be flipping through
Angry Birds.
Angry Birds, and you'll be squashing tomatoes.
We know that's what Connect really is all about. Angry Birds.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Please join me in thanking
John.
Blake for bringing this to us.
Thanks. Appreciate it.